Okay, so for another Tierlist episode after more than 7 months, I think there's no need for an animated intro here. I mean, let's just all be nice and quiet so that we can... Wait, what is that? Oh no, is that the sound? The sound of an animation I spent too much time on? No? Oh, okay. Well, hello my dear day olds and night monkeys, good morning and good evening, and welcome back to another video. I am so happy to have you all here. Hasn't been a long, good while since my last tier list. Isn't that your fault for being lazy and procrastinating? What? How dare you? I was busy talking about important and world-changing topics. For example, how I don't like a person that died decades ago. Okay, maybe I have been procrastinating, but I promise that I will not forget this YouTube series before I finish it. So how about I get right on that promise and start the third episode of this wonderful series. In addition to that, this episode will also have a special one-time gimmick that I will introduce as soon as it becomes relevant. Also, I will skip the gender difference version, as just like last time, I have nothing to say about them. Okay, enough blabbling, let's go! Nothing here. Wow, I really don't seem to have many extreme feelings about the Pokemon of Hoenn. I mean, I think that's good, but for the sake of storytelling and entertainment, I do hope in future episodes I can muster up some hate to exploit for content. Anyway, I'm sorry to disappoint you yet again, because there's nothing in here. Whee! There's finally some Pokemon to talk about! And it's even more than one, isn't that great? Now, these things sure seem like a very random assortment of qualified critters, but should you have seen the previous episodes, when it comes to small groups of Pokemon that I don't like, I can yap on and on and on. So let me begin with Sableye. I think most people actually like Sableye, and at least design-wise, there's not a lot I can complain about. So why is it here? Now, while I don't know anything about TCG or competitive Pokemon, I do play Pokemon Unite from time to time. And some time back, I played it a lot. Like the amount where you would say, maybe stop doing that. Anyway, at that time, I had basically hit my peak of playtime. And that was also the time that Tencent decided to throw this little piece of Gremlin-sized shit into the game. And I know that most Pokemon that are newly added are really OP in the beginning. But it was different for Sableye. Now, if a new Pokemon is really OP and is basically almost guaranteed to win a 1v1 against most other Pokemon, I don't really care about that. Because in that case, I may need to play a bit more carefully, or basically just play Trevenant and out-tank my opponent in every 1v1. Something else. Point being is that if a Pokemon is OP because it does a lot of damage, that is annoying, but I can live with it. It's fine. However, that is not the case for Sableye, because Sableye is a support Pokemon. And because the devs apparently didn't want to have a DPS supporter, they came up with a brilliant idea: let's give Sableye only abilities to annoy its enemies. Sableye can stun you for what feels like hours. Sableye can place fake points that slow you down when you walk through them. It's invisible unless it stands too close to you. While it's invisible, its movement speed increases massively. Its Unite move sends you back to your spawn. In addition to all that, it also did a shitload of damage. And all of those things combined led to the single most fucked up gremlin that encouraged players to only ever backdoor score. When they weren't doing that, they could harass an entire fucking team without ever being caught because they could run away at the speed of fucking light while being invisible. Now, I think they fixed most of these things, because if I see a Sableye nowadays, I don't think half the problems, I don't have half the problems playing against it as I did back then. But back then, it really stained my opinion of it, hence it now being here, 2 years after it was added to the game. Though you might ask yourself why, in all my hatred, I placed it only in the 3rd lowest tier. Well, my probably furry adjacent friend, that is because in spite of all my bitching, I do recognize being a prick in this game is quite fun. So I played it myself as well. And I regret nothing. Okay, moving on, we have Electrike. For Electrike, I don't have the same amount of hate to spew as for Sableye, that being because my disdain for Electrike is very simple based on the fact that I think it looks like a puke green piece of sideway broccoli with no distinguishing features outside of its piss yellow stripe across its body. But to be honest, that's it. I think it's ugly and uninspired, and to me it looks more like a knockoff Pokemon drawn by an 8-year-old that was then given to a professional artist who gave their best turning it into a real Pokemon. But there is only so much you can do to an 8-year-old's drawing. The same vein I think similarly about Minun and Plusle, which is I think are probably the most uninspired Pikachu clones. Yes, they are cute and all, but I already don't like Pikachu, so any Pokemon copying it so closely will also be disliked by me. I am not sorry. Lastly, we have Mega Latias and Mega Latios. Or, is this Latias and this Latios? Or both of these Latias? Or both Latios? I think my point is clear. Why do both of these look the exact same, Game Freak? I mean, I know it's probably about the fact that you didn't want to make different models for the flying around part and auras, but was it really too hard to at least give them a color distinguishment? Now, to be transparent here, I do like the jet-inspired look of this Mega, but sadly, in addition to both looking the exact fucking same, they also show one of the biggest issues with 3D Pokemon so painfully clearly: the sad and washed out looking colors. The original Latias and Latios had these strong and really beautiful, vibrant looking clear colors that on the one hand showed the stark differences in their personalities by being very clearly blue and red, while on the other also really showed that despite the differences they still belong to each other, which I think is conveyed through both colors being very similar in their hue or strength, or however you would call it. I think when comparing base Latias and Latios, their dynamic immediately becomes obvious, with them having a kind of sibling-like relationship in which Latios may be more stern and realistic, while Latias is more empathetic and curious, with both of them being equally passionate. And I think all that is conveyed through their colors and designs in the originals. And I also think that all of that is lost with the Mega Evolutions. Look at them! There's no personality behind those eyes. The color is some washed out bluish purple. Heck, this looks more like a fusion between the two than a Mega. They lost all the emotions and personality they conveyed with their previous designs. With that, I will also finish this tier. I did brabble on a whole lot about Latias and Latios, and I will do some more when they come up later in the tier list, so I hope you liked this rant, because there is more to come. If you didn't like it, you can go suck my While it is sad that the first 2 tiers were completely empty this time around, I luckily have enough negativity in my heart that even with the lowest 2 tiers eliminated, the 2 tiers coming after that are still negative ones. So let's get to the last truly negative tier and talk about boring Pokemon. I sound too excited for a tier that literally revolves around things that aren't exciting. Anyway, the first 2 I'll talk about are these 2 cocoons. Fine cocoons, but I still don't get why they made these 2 different Pokemon with distinct Pokedex numbers. I'd say they rather look like 2 versions of the same Pokemon, do they not? I think they could have done the same they did with Burmy. I mean, every version of Burmy or Wormadam is still a Burmy or Wormadam, so I don't really get what they were going for with Silcoon and Cascoon. And just to add insult to injury, in their 3D models, their spikes aren't even visible most of times, so they just look like weird eggs laying kind of flat on the ground. Well, lucky for me, Cocoon Pokemon all evolve fairly quickly, so I think I just don't have to look very long at them. Next, we have Wingull and Pelipper, being a seagull and a pelican, respectively. I feel the need to mention that for some reason a friend of mine really likes both of these, but to me they just look like sandwich-stealing capybara eating sea chickens. I can't really say that much more about them, because that's kind of the whole point of this tier. All of these are in here because I would describe them as being just a blank. To illustrate my point, this is just a sloth, this is just a cicada, this is just a chameleon, this is just a weird and washed out purple rabbit, and this is just an onion. I would say the same about Illumise and Volbeat. I mean, they are just fireflies, but the reason I am mentioning them slightly further is because I remember watching an official Pokemon short back in the day, where there were like a bunch of Pokemon that got stranded in the woods, and then a Volbeat and Illumise helped them through the night. Do keep in mind, I am reciting this from memory. I'll try to find some footage to play here. Anyway, the reason they are boring is because they just feel so insignificant to me as Pokemon. Apart from that one short, I can't remember these two being important in any part of the entire Pokemon franchise. These are the kind of Pokemon that you see and say, oh yeah, I forgot about those. Which is not without its reasons. I mean, they don't really have a specific or special feature apart from being just differently gendered versions of each other. Also, I just found out that Volbeat shares its name with a Danish metal band, which is a piece of trivia I found by googling Volbeat and this coming up way before anything Pokemon related. I don't know why exactly, but for some reason I feel more empathetic towards I'll try that one again. I don't know why exactly, but for some reason I feel more empathetic towards Illumise and Volbeat than towards other Pokemon in this tier. Maybe it's because they both look like they're trying to be some cutie Pokemon, but still getting nothing from Pokemon apart from a brief appearance in the Gen 3 intro. I somehow wish I could have a reason to place them above boring, but for now, there's nothing. Wait a gosh darn seconds, when they light up, they have tiny bow ties! Who called these cutie patootie fireflies boring? They are underappreciated, and I hope Game Freak does something about that. Justice for Illumise and Volbeat! Okay, so otherwise to wrap this up, the Sun and Moon thing is disappointing me because they seemed like they have a cool story or some cool side quest or evolution or something, but apparently they are just weirdly shaped rocks that fell from the sky that can't do anything. This thing should have had that other Heartfish as an evolution. This Dragon Cocoon is just very boring compared to the somewhat cute pre-evolution and its metal AF looking evolution, and this dog is only slightly better than its pre-evolution. Okay, time to move on. So, do you remember how I said at the beginning that this episode would have a one-time special gimmick? In addition to that, this episode will also have a special one-time gimmick that I will introduce as soon as it becomes relevant. Well, we are now at the point where it becomes relevant. And now to explain this certified one-time gimmick that I probably won't do for future episodes. I mean, I might think of other gimmicks, but no promises. Yeah, that's the title. I'm good with names, I know. Anyway, this gimmick revolves around my stupidity. To explain, back in the day I didn't really know what Pokemon generations were, and when I found out, I made a lot of misassumptions about which Pokemon were in which generation, and for some reason, when I was making this tier list, I noticed that I thought a lot of Pokemon from Hoenn were actually from another region and generation entirely. So yeah, I will now keep a list and count of what and how many Pokemon I thought were from different generations that were actually from Hoenn. And before I get angry people in my comments, I know that the region and generation are not the same, but for the sake of simplicity and me making the rules, I conflate both for convenience. And to immediately show how this will work, I will add Altaria and Swablu to this list. I thought for some reason that both of these were added in Gen 4. So yeah, we can add that to the list along with the generation I thought they were a part of. I don't really know why I thought so, but it might be because Lance used an Altaria in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and those games are from the 4th generation. Although, truth be told, I might also have just thought that because I felt like the vibes fitted with Sinnoh. This will often be my reasoning that I felt the vibes would simply fit into some other generation outside of the 3rd one, so don't expect too much. Anyway, having that out of the way, I can actually start to go through this tier with a bit more order. As explained in previous episodes, I will feel free to only talk about the Pokemon that I have anything to say about in tiers with a lot of mons in them. If I skip over your favorite Pokemon, you can still see where I would put it, so please stop whining, you are so loud. Anyway, skipping over the first few weasels here, because I can do that, you can't stop me, I'll talk about Lotad and Lombre. I do like the sombrero aesthetic with these guys, in addition to the similarities between Lombre and Kappa, but when compared to their evolution Ludicolo, I just can't put them above neutral tier. Lotad and Lombre are nice and all, but for me at least, they are really missing that unhinged happy sombrero vibe that Ludicolo has. I would have also taken more Kappa similarities. For example, I think I could have put them higher if Lombre was described as stealing the soul of people through their anus, but alas, they are simply sombrero-wearing frogs. Moving on, let's skip over generic early root bird number 3 and the angry squirrel, and let's get to Loudred. Why Loudred? Because it too was part of a different generation in my head. That's right, we have another Pokemon I was too stupid to know the origins of. This time it's also kind of more embarrassing, because I did not in fact associate Whismur with the wrong generation. I don't know how this happened, but for some reason I thought Loudred was a Gen 4 Pokemon as well. I would say it's due to the same reason as with Altaria and Swablu, that being I saw it in Soul Silver, and then I thought it was part of that generation. But Whismur is even more prevalent in Gen 2 in the Gen 2 remakes. Again, I have no idea how this happened, but it did nonetheless. Apart from that, I have placed Loudred in neutral tier because even though I appreciate the clear inspiration from a boombox and the constant streaming mouth, I just can't bring myself to find this design interesting. The ears are the one thing that gives it a personality, as without them it's just shaped just like a generic monster slash troll. Right next to the Loud Screamer we have Makuhita, that for some reason is a bag with arms and legs. I really have no idea what it is. Then we have Hariyama, its evolution, with a weird egg-shaped head, after which we have Delcatty, which is a fine cat but a boring Pokemon with a neck pillow. For some reason. Now we have Nose, Yoga, Mega Yoga, and Blorp! Or Gulpin, how it is rather boringly officially called. No, now that I think of it, Gulpin is actually a good name. At first I had this little fella in the tier above this one, however I had to reconsider after seeing its very purple evolution, and I can't really put both of them in the same tier. So see it as a sorta neutral plus tier, which I will not actually add. Have you seen this tier list already? It has way too many tiers. Oh, and yeah, I also thought this Gulpin Gorp guy was part of Generation 2. I saw it in Soul Silver and thought, yeah, that fits. So hey, let's add Johto to the regions that have deceived me! Well, this is already taking form now, isn't it? Okay, now we have Egg, Pig, already talked about you, Crab, and 2 Pokemon that I first saw in Unova during my first playthrough in Pokemon Black 2. And you know what that means? More misconceptions by me! Yay! So we can add Unova to this dandy list, as I thought Beltoy and Clado were Pokemon from the 5th generation. Also, I have both of these down here, mainly because I think these designs are just kinda weird. I know they are based on actual old clay dolls, and I appreciate that as a concept, but I am not really able to appreciate that while playing the game. I might be weird here, but I don't have a picture of an ancient clay doll in front of my mental eye all the time. So when I see these guys in game, I kinda just see them as a weird owl and weird something else respectively. Like, I wouldn't want to change their designs, but they just aren't for me. Okay, I'm getting kinda bored of this tier, and while I could talk in length about this ghost, or that ghost, that thing that kinda looks like boobs, this little T-Rex, or the fact that the only reason that these two are here is because I needed to show how much more enlightened their pre-evolution is, I will only spend the rest of my time in this tier with this little wind chime. Chimecho is actually in no way especially outstanding. I mean, it is a wind chime that's kinda cute. No, the reason I mentioned Chimecho is that I thought it was part of another generation. That's right, there's one more Pokemon I thought of wrongly in just this tier alone. Yeah, I thought this Pokemon was from Gen 5 Unova, because I first ever saw it in front of the Abundant Shrine in Unova. Also, I just noted that these little things are actually its small and little hands, which does give it points in cuteness. However, not enough for me to bother to edit this tier list after already taking a screenshot of it. So, yeah, that's it. Next tier, please. The first actual positive tier, and we are already, holy Jesus, the video already this long? Okay, I'm going through this tier rapid fire start. Cool chick, not as cool as the other starters. I like the wings. Like moths. Sombrero. Major character in this mystery dungeon I like. Wood samurai. Big burp, and I like red. Turn that frown upside down. Mood. Real fast, real cool in the anime. Wonder Guard. I thought this one's pre-evolution was a different gen, but this one's cooler, so I don't have that problem here. Big Gem. Rhyhorn's more metal cousin. Went completely overboard with the lightning dedication. I like that. Thought this was Gen 4, all its cooler Evos are Gen 4, but this one's pretty too. German name is Schluckweg, which sounds like Schluck weg, and if you had a comma here, it means slurp, gone, which is very funny. Also I thought of the wrong gen. Just give it a tail and it's mega, otherwise cool. Ball. Walking volcano, 4 times weak to the opposing team. Bigger walking volcano, still gets bodied by a splash of water. Like the one other fire Pokemon apart from the starter, also Tute. 4,294,967,296. Should be Bug Dragon, but still cool. Guy in a weird suit, but kinda cool. Fish. Thought this was Gen 4, looks metal, but also keeps me away from the water. Big Blink, very cute. Dinosaur, sassy eyes, but should have been bigger, the thing's a head smaller than me. Thought this was Gen 5, saw it the first time after Undula. Wait, what that music? Anyway, why is it so small? It's a long-necked dinosaur! What is that? Why? Not. It's in so much pain, but looks so cool regardless. Eel. Girly eel. And these two fellows that are down here because their primal forms are cooler than they are, so they're in the higher tiers. Okay. Yeah, oh man. So before I move on, there's just one last thing I want to address. Okay, stop the music. That being a point that I've brought up so many times throughout these Tierlist videos, I don't really want to explain myself every time. So I will use this as a one-time long explanation. Pokemon sizes. So, I think I'm done with this tier. I think this is usually where the next one starts. Normally I expect it to cut me off any second now. Okay, there we go, that's nice. Let's start with the Trico line, and I will when possible talk about an entire evolution line in this tier just for the purposes of trying to not make a 3-hour video essay here. Okay, anyways, I think the Trico line is a bit underrated. Not massively, but in general I think most people would either choose Torchic or Mudkip, with I think Mudkip probably being most people's favorite from that generation. And while Mudkip is also my favorite Gen 3 starter, I actually slightly prefer Trico to Torchic. And there are a few reasons for that. Firstly, I think Trico's line is just, design-wise, more consistent in quality. I mean, I would go as far as saying that Trico's first evolution, the middle one, is probably the strongest middle evo of the Gen 3 Pokemon starters, at least design-wise. And in general, I think it finds a really nice balance between looking like an assassin while also keeping the aesthetic of a lizard. With its leaf-looking tail or arm horns, I think it really does convey the feeling of a naturally evolved hunter, focused on ambush hunting. Also, say what you will about the Mega Evolution, but that Christmas tree rocket being absolutely humongous but still not looking out of place, while Sceptile strikes the most metal pose imaginable, is just something I cannot not respect. Also, I am a very big fan of all the red accent on its body, especially in the Mega, make its design pop without feeling out of place. But having swarmed enough about the starter, I can't really not mention Blaziken. And while I think Sceptile overall is a bit cooler, I really cannot deny the coolness of Blaziken. I mean, just the pose, the color scheme, the flames in its Mega, it just screams firefighting type. And this being the first firefighting type to be made, there won't yet be points docked for unoriginality. That will only start happening with the repeated typings in later videos. Anyway, to stay on this thing, I think one of the greatest aspects of this Pokemon is just how both its pre-evolutions really don't look that impressive. Yes, Torchic's cute, but Combuskin really doesn't have that much to speak for it. So it evolving and coming out as this absolute unit is just too good of a design choice to not respect. Moving on from somewhat well-reasoned arguments, I go to Mighty Yina, which I like because I used it in my first team in my first Omega Ruby playthrough, and back then I used it because it's a dog. And I liked dogs. I would do so again. I still like dogs. Kirlia and Gardevoir are just cool Pokemon. I know, the internet kinda ruined them because they look like women, I guess. But apart from that, these designs really just convey the feeling of a confident and aloof, mighty being. Both Kirlia and Gardevoir look like they are barely just floating on the air, all the while keeping high concentrations on their surroundings. The green and white with hints of pink also just give it this clean yet mysterious aura, which is only really strengthened by their humanoid stature. Lastly, its Mega also really hurt when Diantha used it in X and Y's champ fight. Anyway, skipping over these three beauties, we have a Piranha and a Shark, who I both thought were actually part of Generation 5, because I found them both in black or black too. Nothing more to say here. I like it both and I prefer Sharpedo to its Mega, mainly because the Mega gave me the expectation of a tail, which was not delivered by it. Anyway, on the list they go. Going over Mr. Should Have Been Bug Dragon and this cool fish, we have Banette, which I think is just the perfect ghost puppet looking Pokemon. For now at least. It's a perfect mix between looking like a ghost that wants to kill me and something I just wanna hug. Mwah! Here we have Milotic and the edgy Pokemon. Both are cool, after which we have Glalie, which I mainly mentioned because I thought this ball was a Gen 4 Sinnoh Pokemon. Actually, I had Frostlass and Glalie mixed up, but I thought Frostlass was the one from Gen 3 and Glalie being added in Gen 4. But hey, who doesn't love adding Pokemon to the list of Pokemon I thought were of another generation? I certainly do. Moving on, we have Relicanth, self-proclaimed perfect Pokemon, and for some reason, secret keeper of the Regis, which I won't question. Then we got Salamence and its Mega, who I couldn't really place lower, based on the fact that Salamence is really just a dragon straight out of every child's imagination. It doesn't really get more dragon than this. Also, it might just be me, but I think there's an uncanny similarity between Mega Salamance's shape and the logo of the Resistance from Star Wars, which was definitely intentional. Mega Salamence founded the Resistance, confirmed! Next on, there are Beldum and Metang, who are just really cool with their abstract-looking computery designs that still somehow make them look powerful, all the while they still look organic and natural. Now, I will put all of these legendaries in the same sentence. Really cool, but could be bigger. Now, of course, the Regis have their weird and convoluted, but at the same time really cool quests speaking for them, and the other three are literally cover legendaries, but all of them are too short. I, as a 19-year-old, shouldn't be bigger than a Reggie, and when I put any of the other three next to a Wailord, it shouldn't look like a lost pet that walked into the wrong zoo exhibit. Though I must say that Primal, Kyogre and Groudon are above their normal forms, mainly because they actually are bigger. But I think there's still a way to go there. And now to the last three Pokemon of this tier, those being Deoxys and Latios. Now, I won't feel the need to talk about their designs, because I think it's obvious how cool they look. Also, I already raved on about Latios and Latias earlier, and I will do some more later as well. Anyway, the design unrelated reasons there here are the following. First, for Deoxys, I was really blown away when you went into flippin' space on the back of Rayquaza at the end of the Delta episode of Auras, and then fighting Deoxys as the climax of it all. Masterfully done, I was blown away by it. At least the, I think, 10-year-old I was. And now to Latios. Both the Eon duo hold a really big place in my heart, and most of that is due to their movie I saw as a child that I still have on DVD. This movie was really huge for me. I don't really remember everything, and I don't even know if it's considered good or bad. But I also don't really wanna know. I remember it and everything in it as great, and I don't really want to spoil that for me in a rewatch. Also, I would just get sad that Ash's journey has been over for a while now, and that we might never get to revisit the city that they visited in the movie, along with exactly that Latios and Latias. I mean, especially the Latios from the movie, because it, spoiler warning, dies in the end. So yeah, I will forever keep it shelved on my shelf, always reminding me of a great time of my life. Considering the cute tier is only really half serious and other half cute, I will keep myself to one sentence per Pokemon. Okay, here we go. Very round chicken, head could be bigger. Cutie patootie dog, when I see it it's like a happiness trigger. Very cool nut, as a child I thought of it as super rare, seeing it now fills me with vigor. Trasla sadly has its very cute big eyes hidden, but with a selfie it would still look cool AF, just add glitter. Surskit is basically just an onion with big eyes and pink cheeks that can skitter. Skitty and Waylog just make the cutest couple, at least in this comic called Tinder Skitty, which is great with or without liquor. Then we have Aaron, who is a great digger. Okay, I will stop trying to rhyme words with bigger now. Spoink jumping the entire time just really fills me with delightfulness. However, I am scared for its well-being, considering it dies when it stops. Maybe keep on jumping there, buddy. Trapinch should also have been a part bug type, but also its head is stupidly big, so I guess I'll forgive it. Cagnia grew on me as James's Pokemon in the anime, and to be honest, it just mostly being a ball just adds even more to that. After that, we have the cutest couple in all of Pokemon, even Skitty and Waylord waver to that. I mean, just look at the great tsundere vibe. And yep, they love each other. Now we got Feebas, who I will put in this tier out of spite for Pokemon calling it ugly. No, I don't think it needs a higher beauty stat. It already is beautiful, thank you very much. Second to last, we have Snorunt, who I love as Pokemon, who I really rooted for to finally evolve someday, which it actually did. So that's great, but also, look at its little arms. It's cold. Just needs snuggles. Last but not least of this tier, we have this amazing Seville. Look at it. It's a seal, but as a sphere. Also, there's this great animation that shows Seville similar to a Planet Earth-style documentary. Yay! Ah, the second to last tier. I smell the end approaching. But before you can get to see my absolute favorites for this generation, I gotta talk about who comes close to second. And let's do so immediately. We start out with Marshtomp and Mega Swampert. Now I gotta be real here, the reason Marshtomp is all the way up here is mostly because it got dragged here by its evolutions. I love its evolutions, and thus I can't really let it fall too far down. After all, Marshtomp is part of the evolution line I chose for my first exploration of the Hoenn region. But that also means I can't really talk too much about him, cause he is only really here out of nostalgia bias. Same thing kinda goes for Mega Swampert, but there is also more to this walking muscle bag. Now, I only ever played the actual third generation on my calculator in high school, so when I talk about all my first experiences in Hoenn, I made those with 10 years old or so when I played Omega Ruby. So basically Mega Swampert was also part of my first Hoenn experience. But apart from that, it is also really hard to describe the feeling of giddiness when I first Mega evolved my Swampert in Omega Ruby. Just the sheer amount of anticipation I first felt when Mega evolving it, hoping so very hard it would look cool, and then absolutely getting what I wanted and more was just undescribable. I remember running up and down my house telling my brother or my parents how the cool axolotl I had turned into a bodybuilder, which probably annoyed the hell out of them. But I mean, just look at the design! The huge torso that is now directly connected to the head, its fins tripling in size, those gorilla-sized forearms, and those orange extrusions that looks like they are mimicking bulging muscles just come together to create this absolute monstrosity of a Pokemon. And I feel like they did a great job making all those elements fit together without it looking like it's just too much or uncanny or something. Really just an absolute peak of a design. But now moving on to the next lover on this list, we have Mawile and its Mega Evolution. And not only are these two one of the best mounts of the generation, in my opinion, they also mark the great end of this video's gimmick tier list. Specifically, Mawile was first met by an 8-year-old me in Pokemon Black, where I immediately thought it was extremely cool looking. Kinda embarrassing though, I actually fell for its disguise because I have a distinct memory of my brother telling me that the big mouth is actually just its hair and me being dumbfounded and having to check to confirm for myself. So unrelated to how hard they actually tried to make the hair look like a real head, it worked on me, so good job, designer. So with that, I can now close this part of the video, ending the gimmick list with another addition to the 5th generation. Anyway, to finish up my thoughts on Mawile, I think there's really nothing to complain about when looking at this Pokemon. Neither its Mega or its base form. I mean, the Mega adds another great mouth and also doubles the Pokemon in size. I mean, it's still just a meter tall, but if I had to guess, I'd say that these mouths themselves are all at least a meter long as well. So I think overall this Pokemon has quite the size, even though it might not be vertical. Anyway, I think all I can say anymore is that it is incredibly cute, the typing is cool, even though there might be multiple Pokemon with it, and also I think they did a really great job on the rest of the Mega design-wise. Just look at the colors too. I mean, giving it red legs in the same tone as the insides of the mouths not only makes it look more capable of harming you, but it also adds to the camouflage aspect of the design, as the body and mouth are now sharing a bit more in common. Moving on, we have Aggron, which I hope I don't need to say a lot about. I think it is absolutely evil that it wasn't made a pseudo-legendary as well, even though it looks like it takes on Tyranitar's head-on. I didn't place its Mega up here because I think the Mega is just a bit too much. But this lovely dinosaur is, in my opinion, the sweet spot in looking very menacingly and very much embracing its steel type without making it look like a child asked to add even more steel plates. I also used this beauty in my calculator Pokemon Emerald playthrough, so while it doesn't have that much nostalgia value, it still makes me thankful for all the trainers it destroyed for me. Also, it's taller than Tyranitar. Why it's not a pseudo-legend is lost on me. Now to Mega Banette. In contrast to Aggron, who was up here and its Mega further down, Mega Banette has been elevated by me to above its original. Don't get me wrong, I don't think there's anything wrong with the normal Banette, but I think what the base design lacks most of is variety. It's dark, grey and yellow, which is good for what it's trying to be, but I also wouldn't question why someone would think that that is a bit boring. Mega Banette takes that problem, throws it out the window, and then eats the soul of whoever else was standing in the room at that point. I just absolutely love the way this design makes the normal Banette look so much more mysterious and powerful. The added zippers not only give the impression of scarring on its body, but they also really emphasize the fact that this Pokemon is actually just a puppet controlled by the actual ghost inside of it. So the way the zippers get pulled open to reveal parts of the original body of Banette really pull the whole thing together. From that, the now open puppet basically looks like a long gown floating in the wind, not to mention how it also makes Banette look significantly bigger. It just really does everything right in what a Mega Evolution should do design-wise. It expands upon the original Pokemon in a believable way and also makes it look so much cooler. I really like the detail of the body being red like its eyes, showing that the eyes of the original Mon already hinted at what the actual Pokemon looks like underneath. Now, I don't want to seem like I am making Metagross look like less than it is, but I really think there isn't much to say for me here. I think I have to explain to no one how absolutely metal this design is. So I will just stick to a nostalgic short story I have relating to this Pokemon. Shortly after release of Pokemon Auras, there was an online event where you could get a shiny Beldum, and for me this was the first time I had a 3DS with an internet connection. Before on my DS I never knew there was such a thing as Wi-Fi, but on my 3DS I could experience the wonder of online giveaway events. So I got the shiny Beldum as my first ever event Pokemon, and I have used it from the start to the finish line. Also, my big brother saw that I had a shiny Beldum, something which he didn't on his game of Alpha Sapphire, and when he asked me how I got it, I didn't want him to also have one, so I made some shit up about how you have to talk to a lot of different NPCs before you get it, which he actually believed me. For some reason. But don't worry, I felt bad like a minute after telling him, so I said, just kidding, it's actually an online event. Get pranked, bro. And so I guess he also used one. But mine was better! Anyway, time for the last mon of this tier. That one being the one and only Mega Rayquaza. And seriously, what do you want me to say here? It's a giant space snake that you get to ride into space to fight an evil alien trying to crash into your planet. There is not a lot that's cooler out there. It's got a banger-ass design, completely over the top of its details, but in the case of a giant space snake, it only really makes it look cooler. It's a beast and competitive Pokemon, or so I heard. I don't actually know anything about it. And also it protects Earth canonically from an evil mutated virus trying to throw asteroid at Earth. What could be cooler? But also it could be bigger. Look, I don't want to complain, but the thing is, it should be bigger than a Wailord, okay? I'm just saying. Well, this is the home stretch. I wonder if anyone actually sticked around long enough to watch me say this right now. If someone ever does, hello! Thank you for watching all this. But now I have taken enough of your time, so I will try to wrap up this beautiful piece of tier list soon enough so you can return to your Pokemon TCG gambling addiction. I see you, you know who you are. So, I hope no one is surprised by the fact that the first two here are Mudkip and Swampert respectively. I think I've made myself very clear in the previous tier already that Swampert holds a very special place in my heart, simply because of nostalgia. And in the case of Mudkip, this goes even further, because even before the Gen 3 remakes, I wanted to have Mudkip as soon as I ever saw it in the anime. It didn't take me too long to find out back then that Mudkip was the start of the third generation, which kinda represented a problem for me. Mostly because I was a small boy and I didn't have any money, nor the means to use eBay or to buy a retro gaming console to play a single Pokemon game on it. I had to spend my money on more important things, like that Pokemon figurine I saw in that store that one time. Anyway, the point being, when I first saw the trailer for ORAS, I kinda lost my marbles. They're making that old game again? Mom, I need money! Oh my god. I need to drink something, god. So yeah, it wasn't even a question what starter I chose at that point. I love my Mudkip. I still have it, though it's a Swampert now, and I still love it. I grow very attached to the Pokemon I use in these games, which is why I will very rarely ever reset my accounts to replay them. I did it like twice in my life, and one of those times I still ended up trading all the Pokemon that were important to me into Pokemon Bank. I know they are just code, but I like the thought that somewhere out there's a parallel universe in which my Pokemon get to live a perfect life where basically I am their trainer, and these games give me but a glimpse of what could have been if I were born in that parallel universe. I hope my Pokemon there are happy. Where was I? Oh yeah, Swampert and Mudkip are very dear to me, and if you need someone else to tell you how great Mudkip is, every day, just watch Smallland or something. Design is great, nostalgia hits, it's cute, great typing, Felix activated, let's move on. Second to last, we have the great Pokemon of eepiness. Waking up once in 1,000 years simply to grant wishes to whoever apparently was standing close to it at that point. Jirachi. If you watched my last tier list, I mean odds are you didn't, but who knows, I also put that generation's mythical up here. Back then it was Celebi and now it is Jirachi. I just always get captivated with these mythical beings. I think it's close to that feeling of wanting what you can't have. Anyway, like with Celebi, I also used to see tons of fake Jirachi events, those videos that pretend to go on the moon to catch it, and I always wished that I could do that. Though when I played Omega Ruby, I kinda sadly already knew that these videos were all fake, I chose to believe them nonetheless. I just love everything about this Pokemon, be it its design that beautifully depicts a shooting star while making it look like a small genie, the large eye on its belly that only opens when it uses its full power, being a nice reminder that this cute little bumpkin can be used to wish for the destruction of all Warmods in the world. Is it nostalgia? Yes it is, and I have no shame in saying that. Do I wish I could use it to wish all Pokemon to existence and turn our world into that is the utopia of the Pokemon games? Yes, in Arceus' name, that is all I ever wanted. But that will probably not happen in the near future. Oh, well. Small side note, the Pokemon movie about Jirachi absolutely sucked, but that didn't make me like it less, so I guess that's that. And now, last but most definitely not least, my personal cream of the crop, the probably at this point least surprising Pokemon as there is only one left. Latias. I already went on multiple tirades about the Eon duo and also specifically Latias, so I will basically just sum up my thoughts on that. I love Latias. I loved its movie. I love that it was in the last few episodes of the Ash-centered Pokemon anime. I was very sad that it didn't join Ash's team, but at least we got to see the city from its movie one last time. I'm just assuming they won't go there anytime soon. And now I can only really reiterate why I love its design. Its design, along with its color scheme, especially paired with that of Latios, really create that beautiful dynamic of serious and stern, as well as curious and naive. In the movie, I loved its role as the curious and mysterious troublemaker that hid along the population as a girl, and even though that might be weird, the only reason I don't hope Ash ended up with human Latias is because Serena is the actual GOAT. I'm sorry, I just can't change that. I do hope, however, that Latias got to be their companion off-screen or something. In any case, I just really get a kick of that nostalgic, lovely feeling as when I played Pokemon and first got into contact with a Latias, or when I first watched this movie whenever I see it. It just has so much personality, which I hope will be explored more intensely in a future game or anime that maybe hopefully also plays in that cool city from the movie. I think that was based on Venice or something. In any case, I love Latias and I hope to see it more often in future Pokemon games. Hopefully though with some kind of story and not just standing in a corner weirdly waiting to be caught. I really hate Scarlet and Violet for doing that with their legendaries. Oh, what am I doing here? I'm trying to end the video on a nice and heartwarming note. Anyway, I hope all of you really enjoyed your stay in this here video. Making this was a lot of fun and it also gave me real appreciation for this generation of Pokemon. If you'd asked me before this video how I felt about the third generation, I would have said that I probably thought it was kinda boring or something in comparison to the other gens. But making this showed me that I actually do appreciate a lot more Pokemon from this generation. It's not my favorite, but it's definitely not bland or boring. And also here you can, like I promised before, you can look at this beautiful chart that I made from all the Pokemon I imagine to be from different gens. I imagine them all to be from Gen 4 or 5. It's just that it was the time I was stupid. It's fine. So I hope you enjoyed that as well. Maybe I will do future gimmicks in future episodes. But with that, I hope you enjoyed this unhinged rambling of a tier list, and I hope to see you on any other of my videos. Goodbye!